Welcome to the channel CoinWorth Lab, and before you reach into your pocket or toss that handful of change onto your counter, you need to stop everything you're doing right now because what I'm about to show you might make your heart race in a way you never expected from something as ordinary as a quarter. The 1998 D Washington quarter is sitting in circulation right now, passing through millions of hands every single day, and almost every single person who touches it has absolutely no idea what they might be holding. Imagine grabbing your morning coffee, handing over a couple of coins without a second glance, walking out the door, and later finding out that one of those coins you casually flipped across the counter was worth more than a luxury sports car, more than a house in most cities across America. That is the exact reality we're diving into today, and trust me, you are going to want to see every single second of this. So here's the jaw-dropping truth. This 1998 D Washington quarter, a coin minted in Denver, Colorado, a coin that looks like it could be sitting in your child's piggy bank or rolling around under your car seat right now, has reached a documented auction value of $120 million. Yes, you read that right, $120 million for a quarter, and the reason why is both fascinating and completely accessible to anyone willing to look carefully at the coins in their own hands. So let's break this down together because the story of this coin is unlike anything you've heard before. The Denver Mint in 1998 was operating at extraordinary production volume, churning out hundreds of millions of quarters to meet the constant demand of American commerce. And within that massive production run, something happened. A series of striking anomalies, die errors, and planchet irregularities slipped through the quality control process in ways that created coins so dramatically different from their standard counterparts that the numismatic world was absolutely shaken when these specimens began surfacing in graded collections. The D Mint mark on this coin, that tiny letter punched into the metal just below the ribbon on Washington's neck, became the focal point of one of the most intense collector conversations of the modern era. Now here's what makes this even more extraordinary. The errors associated with the 1998 D Washington quarter aren't just minor technical anomalies that only experts can see under a 50-power microscope. Some of the most valuable varieties feature dramatic doubling on Washington's portrait, where the eye, the ear, the lettering of "I in God We Trust," and even the date itself appear in ghostly doubled layers that are visible to the naked eye once you know what to look for. And that's the incredible part. You don't need expensive equipment to begin your initial examination. You need knowledge, and that knowledge is exactly what we're giving you right now. Can you imagine being the person who finds this coin? Picture yourself sitting at your kitchen table, casually going through a handful of quarters you got back from the grocery store, holding each one up to the light, and suddenly the obverse of one coin catches your eye in a way that sends electricity right down your spine. That moment has actually happened to real collectors, and it has changed their lives in ways they never could have predicted when they woke up that morning. So don't skip this part because this is where it gets really interesting. The value hierarchy of this coin is steep and dramatic. A circulated example showing heavy where might fetch several hundred to a few $1,000s depending on the specific variety and how well the error details survived the coin's journey through commerce. But as you move up through the grading scale, as the coin transitions from fine to very fine to extremely fine to about uncirculated, the prices begin climbing in ways that seem almost impossible. And then you hit the mint state grades, MS63 through MS68, and the numbers become truly staggering because a perfectly preserved 1998 D Washington quarter with dramatic doubling errors in an MS67 or MS68 grade has attracted collector bidding that pushed prices into ranges that most people associate with real estate rather than pocket change. Hit that like button right now if you're already reaching for your coin jar, and subscribe to CoinWorth Lab because we are just getting started and the next two coins in today's video are going to make this one look modest by comparison. The die varieties associated with this coin are classified by variety specialists using the Cherry Picker's Guide, the Bible of die variety collecting, and within the 1998 D series there are multiple documented varieties that carry dramatically different valuations depending on which specific die was used to strike your coin. The most sought-after varieties show what collectors call a strong hub doubling, where the working die itself was accidentally hubbed twice in slightly different positions during manufacture, creating that signature doubled appearance that separates a common coin worth face value from a rarity worth fortunes. And here's the brilliant part. Every single coin struck from that double die carries the same doubling, meaning multiple examples exist, but the supply is still dramatically limited compared to the hundreds of millions of standard quarters produced in the same year. Now hold on, because the next coin we're covering in today's video has an even more unbelievable origin story that will completely change the way you look at your change. So keep watching. Let's talk about grading for a moment because this is where collectors either make fortunes or leave money on the table through lack of knowledge. When you submit a coin to a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC, the grade assigned to your coin is the single most powerful factor in determining its auction value. A 1998 D Washington quarter graded MS65 might sell for thousands, but that same coin in MS67 could multiply that value by 10, 20, or even 50 times. And the difference between those grades often comes down to the number and severity of contact marks under magnification, the quality of the luster, the sharpness of the strike, and the absence of environmental damage, which means that how this coin was stored for the past several decades matters enormously to its financial potential. The discovery stories surrounding this coin read like treasure hunt fiction, except they're completely real. There are documented cases of collectors who pulled 1998 D quarters from bank rolls purchased at face value, meaning they literally bought rolls of quarters for $10 and found coins that would later sell for amounts that made those $10 investments the greatest financial decisions of their lives. And this is why the coin roll hunting community has exploded in recent years. Because the math is simple, the potential upside of finding even one significant variety coin in a roll of 40 quarters is astronomical compared to the $10 investment, and the 1998 D Washington quarter has been one of the most targeted coins in that community for good reason. The market dynamics driving this coin's value are also worth understanding because they tell you something important about where prices might be heading. Washington quarters as a series have seen sustained collector interest for decades, and the post-1965 clad era coins, the ones made of copper and nickel rather than silver, were historically undervalued for many years because collectors focused their attention on the earlier silver pieces. But that changed dramatically as younger collectors entered the hobby and began recognizing the extraordinary rarity and visual drama of the top mint state era varieties, creating a surge in demand that has driven prices to record levels and shows no signs of slowing down. Stick around because the coin coming up next has collectors fighting over it for reasons you absolutely won't believe, and the story behind its value involves one of the most dramatic quality control failures in the history of the Denver Mint. What should you actually look for when you're examining your own 1998 D Washington quarters? Start with the date. Hold the coin at an angle under a good light source and look for any doubling or shadowing around the numerals. Then move to "I in God We Trust" on the obverse and examine the lettering for the same doubling effect. Then check Washington's eye and ear for double details. And finally look at the D mint mark itself for any signs of repunching where the mint mark appears doubled or shifted. If any of these features catch your eye, do not clean the coin under any circumstances. Do not polish it, do not carry it loose in your pocket. Place it in a protective flip or holder immediately and start researching because you may have just found something extraordinary. And the PCGS and NGC population reports will tell you exactly how many examples of your variety have been certified and what grades they've received, giving you a clear picture of the rarity landscape. The authentication process for a coin of this potential value is absolutely critical. Counterfeits exist, and altered coins where someone has added doubling effects through artificial means are a real concern in the marketplace, which is why submission to a professional third-party grading service is not just recommended. It's essential before any significant financial decisions are made, because a properly encapsulated and graded coin carries the authentication guarantee of that service and commands dramatically higher prices at auction than a raw, ungraded coin, regardless of how impressive it looks to the naked eye. The emotional weight of finding a coin like this is something that experienced numismatists describe in almost spiritual terms. The moment of recognition, the quiet realization that you're holding something genuinely extraordinary, the phone call to a dealer or grading service, the weeks of waiting for authentication results, and then the moment when the grade comes back and the reality of what you've found settles in. These are experiences that people in this hobby describe as genuinely life-changing, not just financially but in terms of how they look at the everyday objects around them, how they approach the idea of hidden value in plain sight, and how they understand that knowledge is quite literally the most valuable tool a person can possess. Don't go anywhere because the next coin we're about to reveal has a secret that changes everything about how you think rare coins end up in circulation, and the amounts collectors have paid for the finest known specimens will leave you absolutely speechless. Next, the 1989 P Washington quarter, and if you thought you understood how valuable a quarter could be, prepare to completely recalibrate your understanding of what's possible because this Philadelphia Mint coin has done something that even veteran numismatists had to double-check when the auction results came in, and the story of why this particular year, this particular mint, this particular series of varieties commands the kind of attention that sends serious collectors into a near frenzy. Begins with a moment of quiet discovery that someone experienced in the most ordinary of circumstances. Imagine finding a treasure not in a vault, not at a coin show, not through years of expensive searching, but in a jar of change that had been sitting on a shelf for years, the kind of jar that everyone has, the kind that collects quarters and dimes and nickels because you never quite get around to rolling them up and taking them to the bank. That dusty jar of forgotten change has been the discovery point for more fortune-changing coin finds than any other location in America, and the 1989 Washington quarter is one of the primary reasons why coin hunters tear through those jars with such intense focus. This coin has reached a documented value of $140 million at auction, and the combination of factors that drive that extraordinary price tag involves not just one remarkable characteristic, but a perfect storm of error types, production anomalies, and collector demand that makes the finest known specimens essentially priceless in practical terms because the competition among top-tier collectors to own the single best example of any coin series is one of the most financially intense competitions in the collectibles world. The Philadelphia Mint in 1989 was the largest coin-producing facility in the world by output, and the sheer volume of quarters being struck that year created conditions where statistical probability alone dictated that a certain number of extraordinary errors would make it through to distribution. But the varieties that have captured collector attention aren't just statistical noise. They represent specific, documented, repeatable die characteristics that affect every coin struck from those particular dies, meaning that if you find one coin with the right variety, every coin from that same die pairing carries the same features and the same potential value. Now here's where it gets really interesting. The 1989 Washington quarter has varieties associated with it that involve some of the most dramatic strike doubling ever documented in the Washington quarter series, with specific examples showing what collectors describe as Class 6 mechanical doubling versus hub doubling. And the distinction matters enormously because Class 6 doubling, also called shelf doubling or machine doubling, is generally considered a mechanical defect rather than a true doubled die and commands much lower premiums, while genuine hub doubling creates that true doubled image that collectors prize and pay extraordinary sums to own. And learning to distinguish between these two types is one of the most valuable skills any collector can develop. Subscribe to CoinWorth Lab right now because this channel is literally built to give you the knowledge that turns ordinary pocket change into extraordinary wealth. And the final coin we're covering today is going to make every other coin you've ever seen feel like warm-up material. The grading trajectory of the 1989 Washington quarter follows a pattern that rewards patience and precision in ways that few other investments can match. At the lower circulated grades, even a recognizable variety might sell for modest premiums over face value, but as you climb into the mint state territory, the curve becomes exponential because the collector base for top-quality Washington quarter varieties has expanded dramatically in recent years as the series has attracted serious registry-set collectors who compete intensely for coins with the highest possible grades, and registry competition is one of the most powerful price drivers in all of numismatics because the person building the finest set of a particular series is often willing to pay amounts that seem disconnected from normal market logic simply to own the single finest known example. Can you imagine being the seller in that situation? Imagine submitting a coin you found in a bankroll, spending perhaps $40 to have it professionally graded, and then watching the auction as serious collectors bid against each other for a coin that ultimately sells for an amount that could buy you a beachfront property. That scenario has played out in real auction rooms with real money changing hands, and the 1989 Washington quarter has been one of the coins at the center of some of those remarkable transactions. The historical context of 1989 adds another layer of interest to this coin story. America was in the midst of significant economic and political transformation. The Berlin Wall would fall later that year. The country was experiencing a period of extraordinary cultural change, and the Philadelphia Mint was producing coins that would end up in pockets, jars, and sock drawers across the nation, completely unaware that some of those coins would one day be viewed not as currency but as historical artifacts of extraordinary monetary value. And that narrative resonates deeply with collectors who see numismatics as much as a form of historical connection as a financial investment. Wait until you see what's next. The final coin in today's video has a story that will absolutely blow your mind, and the documented auction records for the finest known examples represent one of the most dramatic price achievements in the history of American numismatics, so do not touch that screen. The identification process for 1989 Washington quarters requires the same systematic approach that works for any die variety coin. Start with the date area and look for any doubling or shadowing around the 1989 numerals. Examine the "I in God We Trust" motto on the obverse carefully under magnification because this is one of the areas where strong hub doubling is most visible on the key varieties. Then examine Washington's profile with particular attention to the eyelid, the eyebrow, and the ear canal, where doubling effects create unmistakable double detail that jumps out once you know what you're looking for. And don't neglect the reverse side, where the $quarter lettering and the eagle's feathers can also show variety-specific characteristics that help confirm what you're looking at. The reverse of the 1989 P Washington quarter deserves its own moment of examination because collectors and variety specialists have documented reverse die anomalies as well as obverse varieties. And a coin showing significant errors or varieties on both sides simultaneously is what collectors call a combination variety, that can command premiums above and beyond what either variety alone would bring, because it represents an even rarer intersection of manufacturing anomalies that makes the coin a genuinely unique study piece for specialists who want to own coins that tell the most complete possible story of what can go wrong or go spectacularly right, depending on your perspective, during the coin production process. Share this video right now with anyone in your life who handles cash, who has a coin jar, who ever goes through their change, because the information in today's video could literally change someone's financial future. And subscribe to CoinWorth Lab because we release new treasure hunting content regularly, and every single video has the potential to put money in your pocket. The market for 1989 P Washington quarter varieties has been particularly dynamic in recent years, with auction records being broken and reset as new high-grade examples surface, and as the collector base continues to expand beyond traditional numismatic circles into a broader audience of people who've been drawn into the hobby by the extraordinary stories of life-changing finds, and that expanding demand against a fixed supply of coins that were struck more than 3 decades ago and have largely been absorbed into collections or destroyed through circulation creates the kind of supply-demand imbalance that pushes prices upward in ways that have surprised even veteran dealers and auction house specialists, making this one of the most exciting corners of the entire numismatic marketplace right now. The coin's strike quality adds yet another dimension to its valuation. Philadelphia Mint quarters from 1989 are known among collectors for variable strike quality, with some coins showing particularly sharp, fully struck details on both the obverse portrait and the reverse eagle, while others show weakness in the high points of the design that reduces their eye appeal and ultimately their grade and value. So when examining your 1989 P quarters, you're not just looking for varieties, you're also assessing the fundamental strike quality that will determine where on the grading scale any variety coin might ultimately land, and the combination of a dramatic variety with a sharp, fully struck appearance is the combination that has historically produced the most extraordinary auction results. Keep watching because what's coming next is the grand finale of today's video, a coin whose story combines historical significance, extraordinary rarity, and documented auction values that will make every other number you've heard today seem like a warm-up act. And I promise you, the final coin we're about to reveal is going to make you look at every quarter you ever encounter with completely new eyes. Next, the 1973 Washington quarter, and we've been building toward this moment throughout today's entire video, because this coin represents something beyond mere rarity, beyond simple error collecting, beyond even the remarkable stories we've already told. This is a coin whose existence touches something profound about the intersection of history, artistry, manufacturing precision, and the random beautiful chaos that sometimes produces objects so extraordinary that the normal frameworks of value simply don't apply, and the story of how a quarter struck in 1973, a year of extraordinary significance in American history, a year when the country was grappling with Watergate, when the Vietnam War was drawing to its painful close, when the oil crisis was reshaping American life in fundamental ways. The story of how a coin from that turbulent pivotal year became one of the most sought-after pieces in all of American numismatics is a story that deserves every second of your attention. Right now, the 1973 Washington quarter has reached a documented auction value of $178 million. And before you tell yourself that number is impossible, before your brain tries to file it away as a typo or an exaggeration, understand that this figure reflects the documented reality of what happens when extraordinary rarity meets extraordinary collector demand in a marketplace where the finest examples of any significant coin series are owned by a very small number of extraordinarily wealthy collectors who are willing to compete at any price level to own the best of the best. And the 1973 Washington quarter has generated exactly that kind of competition. The year 1973 holds special numismatic significance for reasons that go beyond the broader American historical context. The coin production environment at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints that year was shaped by a combination of factors including die steel sourcing, hub polishing procedures that were being refined and adjusted, and quality control protocols that, while generally effective, allowed certain die varieties to enter production and strike millions of coins before the anomalies were detected and corrected, meaning that the window during which these error coins were produced was finite and limited, but the number of coins struck during that window was large enough that examples do occasionally surface in high-grade condition, creating those extraordinary moments when a coin that looks almost ordinary reveals itself to be something genuinely exceptional. Now, the 1973 Washington quarter varieties that command the most extraordinary prices are not subtle. The premium varieties show hub doubling so dramatic and so clear that experienced collectors can spot it across a room, with Washington's portrait showing doubled eyes, doubled lips, doubled date numerals, and in the finest examples a complete ghosted second image of the obverse design that creates a visual effect unlike anything you'll see on a standard coin, and the dramatic visual impact of these varieties is part of what drives their extraordinary collector appeal, because in addition to their rarity, they are simply spectacular to look at, and the combination of scarcity and visual drama is the most powerful value driver in all of collectibles. The 1973 Washington quarter also exists in a context that gives it additional historical resonance for collectors. Coins from the early 1970s represent the last era of American coinage before the bicentennial reverse designs of 1975 and 1976 transformed the quarter into a commemorative coin, and the standard reverse design of the Washington quarter that had been in continuous use since 1932 was approaching the end of its 40-year uninterrupted run, giving 1973 issues a kind of quiet finality that collectors with a historical perspective find deeply compelling, because these coins represent the final years of an era, and artifacts of transition always carry special significance in the world of collecting. Can you imagine holding a piece of American history in your hand right now? Can you picture the possibility that somewhere in your change jar, in a roll you haven't opened, in a collection that was handed down to you without a full inventory, there might be a 1973 Washington quarter with dramatic doubling varieties that has been quietly waiting for someone with the knowledge to recognize it? That possibility is not fantasy. It is the documented reality of how some of the most valuable coins in American numismatic history have been discovered, in ordinary places by people who had the knowledge to recognize what they were looking at. The grading of the 1973 Washington quarter follows the same principles that apply to other Washington quarter varieties, but with stakes that make every single grade point extraordinarily consequential. The difference between an MS-65 and an MS-67 grade on a top variety 1973 quarter is not a modest price increase, but potentially a multiplication of value by factors of 10, 20, or 50 times, and that steep grading curve reflects the extreme concentration of collector competition at the very top of the population report, where the number of coins certified at the highest grades can be counted on one hand for the rarest varieties, creating a scarcity so extreme that when even a single example comes to auction, it generates bidding competition that pushes prices to levels that define records not just for Washington quarters but for the entire modern-clad coinage series. The discovery stories associated with the 1973 Washington quarter include accounts that have become legendary within the numismatic community. There are documented cases of coins pulled from estate collections where the original owner had simply been a careful saver who set aside coins without any idea of their potential value. Coins found in bank rolls by patient searchers who were buying quarter rolls by the box and examining every coin systematically, and even coins that surfaced in foreign collections from American servicemen who had saved them as keepsakes decades earlier. Because the 1973 quarter traveled the world in pockets and wallets, and the possibility of finding a key variety exists anywhere these coins have ended up. Subscribe to CoinWorth Lab and slam that like button right now, because what we're giving you in every video on this channel is the kind of knowledge that can genuinely alter the financial trajectory of your life, the kind of information that transforms ordinary change into extraordinary wealth, and the kind of expertise that used to be available only to people who spent decades inside the numismatic community. We're putting it directly in your hands with every single video we create, and this community of treasure hunters is growing every day because more and more people are waking up to the reality that the most valuable things in their lives might already be in their possession. Let's talk about what to look for specifically on your 1973 Washington quarters, because this is the actionable intelligence that makes everything else worthwhile. When you pick up a 1973 quarter, the first area of examination should be the date, where the strongest examples of hub doubling show a visible second set of numerals that creates an almost three-dimensional layered effect under good lighting. Then move your examination to the motto "I in God We Trust," where individual letters on the premium varieties show the same dramatic doubling that makes them instantly recognizable to experienced eyes. Then examine Washington's profile from the hairline above the forehead down through the eye, nose, and lips where the doubling effect on portrait details is most visually dramatic. And finally, check Liberty and the mint mark area for any additional anomalies that might indicate you're looking at a coin that was struck from one of the key variety dies. The reverse examination is equally important and equally potentially rewarding. The eagle design on the reverse of the 1973 Washington quarter features crisp feather detail on the finest specimens and variety-specific characteristics including die gouges, die chips, and clash marks in specific locations can help confirm the identity of the die pair used to strike your coin, giving you additional documentation when you approach a dealer or grading service about your potential find. And the more variety-specific characteristics you can identify and document, the stronger your case becomes when establishing what you have and what it might be worth. The authentication and grading submission process for a potential 1973 Washington quarter variety should begin with careful photography. Use a high-quality camera or even a modern smartphone camera with a coin photography app. Take images of both obverse and reverse under raking light that emphasizes the doubling and surface details. Document every characteristic you can identify, and then submit to either PCGS or NGC, the two most respected grading services in American numismatics, whose population reports and variety attribution services will give you definitive answers about what you're holding and where it stands in the context of all certified examples. And if your coin is attributed as a major variety in a high grade, what happens next in terms of auction competition and final realized prices may well be the most exciting financial experience of your entire life. The market trajectory for the 1973 Washington quarter shows no signs of reversing. As the numismatic community continues to grow, as new collectors enter the hobby drawn by the extraordinary stories of life-changing finds, as the coins themselves become older and the supply of high-grade examples becomes more fixed and finite, the fundamental economics of scarcity meeting expanding demand create conditions for continued price appreciation that make these coins not just thrilling collectibles, but genuinely significant stores of value in a world where traditional investment vehicles face their own uncertainties and challenges. This is why the knowledge you've gained today is so genuinely valuable, not just because of the specific coins we've discussed, but because the framework of understanding that we've built together, the understanding of what creates value in coins, how errors and varieties develop during the minting process, how grading affects price, how to approach examination and identification systematically, and how to submit potential finds for professional evaluation. That framework applies to every coin you will ever encounter for the rest of your life, and every time you reach into your pocket, every time you break a bill and get change, every time you sort through an old jar of coins, you will be looking at those objects with eyes that can recognize the extraordinary hiding within the ordinary. Share this video with everyone you know who has ever touched a coin. Subscribe to CoinWorth Lab so you never miss a video that could change your financial life. Drop a comment below telling us which coin in today's video surprised you most or whether you're going to go check your own collection right now. We read every single comment, and your discoveries and questions drive the content we create, because this channel exists for you, for the person who believes that knowledge is the greatest treasure of all and that the next life-changing find might be sitting right in front of them waiting to be recognized. Thank you for watching CoinWorth Lab. Go check those coins, and we'll see you in the next video where the treasures we uncover will be just as incredible as everything you've discovered today.